The Knife by Living Daemon. I remember the night clearly, as though it just happened yesterday or last week. But I know better. It happened 24 years ago. I was only 16 years old at the time, barely old enough to get my driver's license. Outside it was pouring, the hardest that I had ever remembered, as though the sky just opened up into an ocean somewhere. Lightning filled the air constantly as thunder made our windows and our chests rattle from their proximity to our home. It was only myself, my younger brother Kyle, and our mother. My father was in the hospital following a procedure for his knee which had been causing him problems. We had just gotten home from visiting him and were lounging in the living room watching television when it happened. There was a sudden loud knock on our back door. Just one, as though someone had just hit it with a brick. Like the light was sucked from the entirety of our world. Every light in our home was shut off, and we couldn't see anything. Being the only one who could see the back door, I watched it as apprehension filled my stomach, waiting for another knock or anything to happen. Lightning struck again outside, and as thunder filled my mind, I saw a shape near the fence line. Getting up, I went to the door and peered through, seeing nothing, and all I could hear was the barking of the dogs in the neighborhood. The lights in the house suddenly turned back on, giving me a clear view of outside, but I saw nothing and no one, just an empty backyard. The rest of the night passed quickly, and soon we were able to get to sleep. We woke the next day, and it was still pouring outside as the storm raged on, and we found out school was canceled. That night, we were in the living room again as we watched television. Once again, the light shut off as there was an even louder single knock on the door. Standing quickly and rushing to the back door, I tried to see something. Anything that might quell my fears and anxiety. However, they just deepened as lightning struck again and filled the backyard with light, giving me my first sight of a young boy with messy hair standing in clothes that were soaking wet and seemed too large for his small frame. Yanking open the door, I called out to him for the first time in my life. I felt a chill spread through my chest in fear as I saw that he was holding something. Something that seemed shiny and sharp. Something that had a dark substance, far too dark to be water running off of it. I was distracted by my mother calling to me, asking me what was wrong. And between the time that it took to look at her and look back at the boy, he was gone, and all I could see was the backyard as darkness rolled in and took over the night once more. The next day, the storm carried on, raging as though God himself was angry at the world. It never seemed to get closer to stopping at all, and I felt unease and nervousness about the upcoming night as I thought back to the previous encounter with the boy. Soon after, I saw the boy for the first time. The lights came on, and we called the police, who showed up soon after that. Though when they looked, they were never able to find anything to hint at the identity of the boy. Indeed, they could not find anything to show that the boy had been there at all. Soon night had come, and once again We were all in the living room this time, with the television off, as we waited anxiously to see if the boy would appear again. Suddenly, there was a loud bang against the back door, as though a man twice my size hit it as hard as he could with his fist. I jumped up and ran to the back door, peering through it, looking for any sign of the boy as I crouched down, trying to get a better view. However, tonight I couldn't see anything in the backyard at all, as it was pitch black. That question was soon answered when the lightning lit up the world and showed me the face that had been inches from my face the entire time. The boy had pale skin, as though he had been dunked in a pool of ice water over and over again. His hair was almost as dark as the night and was dripping wet as it hung loosely in his face. But his face was the most terrifying thing about him. His lips were peeled back in a truly horrifying feral grin, as though he saw something extremely funny or something extremely bloody, like the pictures I had seen of spectators watching gladiators fight lions. His eyes were hidden under the fringe of his hair, but I could see blood seeping from under his hairline. In his hand, he held a rusty carving knife. It was dripping blood constantly, as though it had just been used to stab something, or someone. I stumble back and I hear a cry from behind me. I start to turn, but remind myself to keep an eye on the child. As I stood, I looked back to the child, but he was gone. As I peered through the door, I saw nothing and heard nothing but dogs barking when I felt a sharp pain suddenly in my upper back where my heart was. My legs gave out and failed me as I tumbled to the side. Looking up, I saw Kyle, my 8-year-old brother, standing over me with a blank expression, holding onto a dripping carving knife that looked very familiar. It was the same one that was held by the boy in the backyard. As I watched, his expression morphed to match that of the boy outside, as I saw his lips curl back, as though he were constantly laughing at something cruelly, and his eyes gained an instant glint to them, while blood welled up in the corners and started making its way down his face. The pain became too much, and I blacked out. When I next woke, I found myself in the hospital. My dad next to me as tears streaked down his face. I found out later that my mother was gone, stabbed multiple times by the same knife that was used to stab me. I still don't know how I survived, but later I found out that Kyle had gone missing and no one knew where he was. That was 24 years ago that it happened. My father passed away soon after that from complications with a surgery and what I assumed was guilt at the loss of our family. Tonight is a night that reminds me of it, because there's a storm just like that one from those nights. I struggle for words. There's a knock on the door. I freeze. My entire world seems to rush in, squeezing me as I look over to the back door that was near me. I reach over and grasp the flashlight that I always keep near me and fumble with it, turning it on as the lights shut off inside my home. I point it at the door and see nothing outside. I start to relax and feel my pulse slow down as the adrenaline leaves my body. Suddenly, lightning fills the area in front of my house, light shining through the windows and illuminating my home, and I freeze again. Behind me is Kyle, looking as though he had never changed over the years. with the same twisted grin and the same rusty carving knife.